Bridge just reopening to traffic after it was shut down by pro-Palestinian protesters for hours. Traffic brought to a standstill around 7:45. At least several dozen people drove onto the Bay Bridge, stopping their cars, with some binding themselves together to block traffic. All lanes of the bridge were shut down for more than 3 hours while police made arrests and towed cars. We're told over 50 people were detained and about 20 vehicles had to be towed off the bridge.
KTVU's Ali Rasmus showed us the developments as they happen. You've been on the bridge, Ali, for hours now. You're live where things have finally changed.
Traffic is moving again. There's no longer that major scene that we had for 3 hours this morning where traffic was at a standstill, and the western span of the Bay Bridge was a scene with hundreds of police officers and protesters after this protest that happened. According to the CHP, it was 7:45 this morning when they said it was a coordinated effort among demonstrators to slow down their vehicles all at once, with CHP says the goal of stopping traffic entirely on the western span of the Bay Bridge. After that, the protesters got out of their vehicles. They had banners. They were, some of them laid down in the middle of the pavement there to block traffic, and traffic was at a complete standstill. The protesters say their message, a ceasefire in Gaza. They also called for an end to U.S. military aid in Israel, and they said they wanted this protest to coincide with the APEC Summit happening this week and President Biden's visit and speech here in San Francisco happening around the same time as all this morning. One of the protesters we talked to explained why they chose this method and the Bay Bridge specifically to get that message across.
We want to get across that we want a ceasefire now and peace and justice in Palestine and ending the occupation now. I hope that Biden and all the leaders at APEC are listening and will do what they can for a ceasefire now.
We are 100% in support of people's rights to exercise their First Amendment. This is the wrong way to do it. This is 100% wrong. It's unacceptable and it's illegal. Right now, we're having to go hundreds and hundreds of yards past the initial scene where we're still finding protesters in vehicles. And that's what's really causing the major delay.
And again, it was about 3 hours before one of the lanes of the Bay Bridge western span was reopened again. The CHP division chief says 50 people were arrested. They towed several dozen cars. He said that some of the protesters threw their car keys off the Bay Bridge in a deliberate attempt to avoid having to move them. However, having said that, there were some people who were detained who said that they were wrongly accused of being involved in this protest. We talked to a gentleman and a woman who identified herself as a physics professor at Stanford University, who said that she just got out of her car to look and see what was going on. She said she saw CHP officers arresting and other law enforcement officers arresting people, getting them out of their cars. She said something to one of the officers that's illegal. They were about 400 feet rather away from the initial protest, and she said that she was detained, and we spoke to her on the western span of the Bay Bridge, sitting with some of the other people with the protest. Another gentleman said that he wasn't told why he was being detained, just that, quote, an officer told him that he would find out later. So a lot of moving parts still with this story in terms of how many people exactly were detained, how many were arrested, how many of them will actually face charges related to all this. The CHP is expected to have more detailed information on those numbers later today. Live in San Francisco, Ali Rasmus, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
Ali, thank you. Our team